Welcome to Arczone's video channel.
Well, today, hanging out here in Arczone, just kind of chillaxing a little bit. We got Samantha Farr in here from Women Who Weld out of Detroit, Michigan. Yes. So thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Hanging out at the Zone, it's always really kind of awesome. And when we get these little, pop-in guests, it really makes us pretty stoked to have the opportunity to sit down and chit-chat with you for a bit. So
yeah, well, thanks for having me. And as I told you earlier, this was on my list of places I had to come see while in California, and I was not disappointed. And this is a fun place to work. So I understand why you're here and with all these cool people and doing these great things for the industry.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Every day is a school day for us. We're always learning. We're always trying to do the best to share our knowledge out there with everyone and bridge the gap, within the industry. So I've got a couple questions for you. So hopefully you're open to sharing some of your knowledge.
Of course.
Awesome.
Definitely.
Awesome. So it says on your website at womenwhoweld.org. Excuse me. And this kind of goes into it. On your website, it says you've been welding for 6 years, and you founded your organization just a few years into your welding journey. That's totally impressive. That's pretty badass. Where did you draw your inspiration from? When did you decide to establish an actual nonprofit? Because that's some thought process. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to do a nonprofit.
You definitely do not. And I've learned that. I kind of went through backwards. Typically, you start a nonprofit when you have a ton of funding to do so. And I had zero funding to do so. But I knew that I wanted to have a program that was free of charge for unemployed and underemployed women, and then additional programming that was at low cost so we could sustain programming. And I knew that it wasn't really a great revenue generator, and so being a nonprofit made sense. And then I also just believe that education is something that you shouldn't really try to profit off of, and it makes sense to be a nonprofit. If you think about any large universities or other educational institutions, they are all nonprofit as well. They just have big endowments that Women Who Weld did not have. So that's where the nonprofit piece came from. I had volunteered and worked at nonprofits in the past as well, some that were run really well and some that needed some help. And I come from a technology business development role. So I was working at a technology startup in New York City for 5 years that got acquired by a larger company. And that's when I made the decision that I wanted to move back to Detroit, where I'm from, pursue a master's in urban planning, and always had an interest in welding, really never knew how I would come into it. And within the first month at school getting my master's, I saw that there was a fabrication lab because it was part of the architecture department and the art department. And I said, this is my opportunity. I can take a welding workshop. So it was a 2-hour period and I learned how to weld and I loved it. And the first thing I noticed was I looked around me and there were no women in the fabrication lab with me, but there were a ton of women in the architecture program, in the urban planning program that had access to this space, and for whatever reason, they just weren't there. So it was kind of immediately like striking my first arc. I'm like, I have to get really good at this so I can then teach other women, because other women should have this experience. And it made sense. I really wanted to make an impact on the industry. So I thought, well, unemployed and underemployed women who are interested in getting into welding may be a really good target. And it could help transform their lives and transform the local economy in Detroit and the welding industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think what you were able to experience at such a raw level, being in there and sitting down, in a lab and looking around and looking for likes, like you. That's one thing that I never had that opportunity either. I was always, in my situation of learning to weld, I was always like, oh, okay, interesting. I don't have any girlfriends here. So I can see with you being in that environment, I can see how that could trigger you. And again, more props to you for seeing that opportunity and literally hitting the nail on the head as far as your pursuit to, provide opportunities and show, highlight an industry that, we need workers and anyone can do it. And to give the disadvantaged, to show them, to empower them to see that opportunity is, I'm at a loss of words to try to, kind of explain the joy that I have for what you've been able to hit, because again, there's such a need for that. There's such a lack of assistance in getting the women to be empowered to be into this situation?
So I had a focus in my studies on community and economic development. And so that's really where this learning how to weld and then having that focus on community and economic development and a little bit of workforce development, it just made sense for all of this to come together in the way that it did.
Absolutely, yeah. If people do their homework on you and kind of see the steps that you took just to get into the urban planning aspects, and then what you took from that point into the architectural into that avenue that exposed you to welding. You know,
it was an interesting route to get there.
Amazing route, you know, and then all of a sudden, here you are.
I think that's why through really difficult times financially, I've stuck with Women Who Weld is one, because it's always like on that worst day, right? That you get the call or the text or the email from someone that went through the program and is like, I just got a promotion, or I just got an email this morning that someone just got into a pre-apprenticeship ironworkers program, and that was her dream. So that keeps me going, but also just this really strong, awesome community of welders and anyone kind of in the greater welding industry. Everyone's so supportive. Most are so supportive, and just really about like trying to advance one another and teach one another, and I really like that, and it's a really awesome community to be a part of.
Absolutely. Now I got a question for you. Now, since you've started Women Who Weld, what adjustments have you had to make along the way just to keep going, to keep yourself sane, to keep everything making sense, you know, to make that next day just a little bit easier, and to make it, you know, maybe not easier, but just a little bit less overwhelming?
It's a really good question. So many things to get to that point. One, just being very organized and understanding like you cannot do everything. You can do a lot, but not everything. I mean, there's at some point where you need to hire an accountant. There's some point where you need to get an attorney for whatever reason. Luckily, we have a lot of good resources in Detroit with free legal help for nonprofits and reduced price accounting. So there's a lot of resources. It's just about knowing how to navigate it and get to that point. So also, I wanted to always have all free programming at all times. That wasn't necessarily sustainable, especially being such a small nonprofit. So that's where we developed the week-long intensive training classes and the single-day workshops, in addition to our subsidized 6-week intensive welding training program. So the week-long is still low cost, but it's a way for us to keep programming going throughout the year and some revenue generation. And then also just reaching a new market. There were women that reached out that said, hey, well, I'm not unemployed or underemployed, or I may not have 6 weeks, but I want to learn how to weld. And so I took the 6-week program and reduced it down to one really intensive week and stripped out the things that we do in the 6-week, like offsite tours and bringing in speakers and having home buying workshop and financial literacy workshop. And I just stripped it down. It's a smaller group. And the women that have wanted to find employment after that week-long intensive class have all been able to do so.
Fabulous.
And then the single day workshops are just a really they're just it's a fun 4-hour period where women of all skill levels can either learn how to weld or come and network with other female welders. So we recently had 2 women that have been in the industry for like 10 and 15 years respectively, and they said this is our first time ever welding with other women, and so that's why we came to this workshop. We know how to weld, but we just want to be here to see women trying it for the first time, and of all ages, from the age of 12 to late 60s. So that was really cool. And the single day workshops can occur anywhere. That's why we're here in Southern California. We're holding several, 2 in Southern California, 1 in the Bay Area early next month. And yeah, so I think those are the things that I've had to add to the program, and I do have to charge, but we really want to keep it low cost. And then always, probably our greatest challenge to date is always funding. It's getting a little easier, but it is a challenge. We don't get any like governmental funding. We don't get any. We don't really even have like a reoccurring funding source. United Way did fund our last 6-week subsidized program, and hopefully that continues into the future. But it's always applying for grants, and oftentimes you get rejected, even if you're like, I got this. This one fits us perfectly, and then you get the rejection. But it constantly keeps you on your toes, and trying to figure out how to run a business is a fun journey.
So what do you know about Arczone?
Well, after today's visit, a lot more. But I kind of came in knowing quite a bit because you have a really informative website with a lot of great history on it. And I really enjoyed it because coming from the technology background, and then this is kind of at the core, it was like a technology company that happened to sell welding products. And I found the story so fascinating. I love Jim showing up at the AWS conference in Chicago and then having this product and coming with a computer and then not being able to showcase it because there was no Wi-Fi then. So I just thought the story was really cool, and just based on from what I see on Instagram, like you guys just seem like a cool company with really good people, and I thought I'm going to see it for myself, and I want to go there and check it out and learn all about it. And you guys, I had really high expectations, and you've exceeded my expectations. I'm just really happy to be here.
Thank you for that. It's one of those things that we strive every day just to kind of, again, showcase the industry at a certain level and provide, outlets for people to find different opportunities. And, what do we do more than anything is we want to sell and provide the best welding supplies out there, for a value price. The people that Jim has brought in, the team that we've created, everyone emphasizes everyone else. It's not just one person's a rock star. We're all rock stars. Right. If I do something, 5 other people have to touch something to it. And Jim's been able to give us a foundation to where we can all play our part. We can, at the end of the day, that product gets out the door into, an end user's hand, and hopefully with some M&Ms and, and a great experience, because again, it's something that within the industry, I think that there's a level of customer service that's kind of been lost along the way. And that's one thing that we've strived every day, again, just to kind of bring it back and bring it into your face, especially when you're dealing with an e-commerce, when you're sitting in front of a box, there's not someone going, hey, how are you today? You don't get that face. Right. And so we strive very, very hard to make sure that when they open up that package, there's our face. Right. You see it, it's like, huh, M&Ms. Huh, who did that? That is awesome. And again, we just try to, it's life. Every day is, something is a different experience. And so we try to showcase that.
And you do a good job, and you can just feel it in here. The vibe is good. Sometimes, you walk into a place of business and you think, oh God, I want to leave here. I'm like, I want to stay. Cancel the rest of the meetings. I'm staying here all day.
Well, thank you for that. Awesome. Earlier, you asked who was behind Carmen.
Yes.
How did you become aware of Carmen Electrode?
It had to have been Instagram. I think Instagram, I came, like when I first started the account, the Women Who Weld account a few years ago, I thought, what's out here? I had no idea how strong the welding Instagram community was. And at the time, even then, it was still growing. And I've just been amazed, one, to find accounts like Carmen Electrode that showcase the women that are out there in the industry doing all sorts of things in the industry, and just being able to see that and think, okay, this is cool. We're not alone. We might only be 4%, if that's the correct number, of the industry, but we're growing and we can all communicate. I mean, I have like friends now from all over the country, female welders that are all over the country that I've been able to connect with through Instagram. So it's just great that something like Carmen Electrode exists to showcase all of the female welders that are out there, because I will, when I have a cohort of women that are going through the 6-week or the week-long, and they say, well, am I going to be alone in this industry? You're saying it's only 4%, that's so small. And I'm like, no, but hold on, you got to follow these people on Instagram that will give you, one, just a network, and two, just kind of so you don't feel alone. And you may be the only female at your place of business, but that you can connect with other females. They may not be in your state, but it's a reason to go vacation and meet each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that, Jim, the founder here at Arczone, he created Carmen Electrode, I want to say, about 10 years ago. He was able to hire, again, another person who was able to create the voice for women, to basically showcase women within the trades. Basically, from that point, they've, I want to say right out of the gate, they were noticed by the American Welding Society, I want to say in 2009, for the Image of Welding Award, which is something, again, it was kind of exposing the different opportunities, exposing welding, out to the world. And again, raising the bar a little bit and kind of showing the level of support that we want to do and we want to bring within the industry. And again, it was another platform that we've just tried to keep building, to again provide more opportunities and more of a networking platform, just like you said.
Definitely.
It's one thing that we created this blog over 10 years ago, and it's really awesome now to people say Carmen Electra is like, well, what is that? Well, it's a blog. It's, and on Instagram, if you go and you find it at the Carmen Electrode, you can go onto that format, and you can see all these amazing tradeswomen coming in and being extremely supportive and sharing their knowledge and building a network, and that's something that it's very, very organic, and it's something that each one of us, I know here behind the scenes at Arczone, we're very, very empowered to push it forward. One thing that I don't think Jim even shared very much with you, one thing about Arczone, and a lot of people don't really know, is yes, Jim's always been behind the curtain, but he's always hired women. We've always had, when I was here, I think there was like 8 women at one point, and just a couple guys, The guys are here to lift the heavy stuff. We did all the work, but it was again, we were given the opportunity to showcase our skill sets. It wasn't about being male or female. It was about, can you do the work? Do you want to do the work? Are you passionate to do the work? So, what's the biggest gap you find in the industry for women? I assume female-focused hands-on training is number one.
Yes, that's definitely a big gap that we're trying to fill, and then kind of a host of things, but what bothers me often, and it feels uncomfortable, and especially for first-time welders, is a big, huge flame-resistant jacket that just does not fit properly. Either in the hips or in the chest or wherever it may be for each individual body type, it's uncomfortable. And so you can, let's say you have a large chest and you want to so you have to wear a large jacket, but then you've got fabric down to here and that's getting in the way of welding, and it's very uncomfortable. Or for really, really tiny people that even in an extra small jacket are drowning in it. So
it's just not safe.
It's not safe. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
As an experienced welder, you can get around it. You can say, okay, well, I know what to do and I can clip this here. But if you're in a 4-hour workshop, it's your first time welding and you're not comfortable, you may say, forget it. Over a jacket not fitting, forget it. This isn't for me.
Absolutely.
So that can be a frustrating point. But hopefully as more and more women enter the welding industry, that will change.
Yeah. Being an instructor myself, one thing that, the biggest thing that I always try to discuss right out of the gate is, just trying to explain to the women within that environment, it's being aware of everything that's around you, and advising them to wear the proper clothing. But when you're in in the industry setting where what's proper clothing?
Right.
So again, I think that's always going to be somewhat of an issue. We just have to network more and more. And what's awesome, and I love to see it, is the support from the industry at an individual level. You've got women out there that are literally hand sewing gear together and getting out into the right hands that fits us. And if we can inspire more like that, I mean, imagine us in 3 years, it could be really, really cool. I think it's opportunities like this where we can kind of shine a light on the industry and shine a light on people that are really trying to, provide opportunities, for the disadvantaged, male or female. I mean, it's wonderful that, that we are focusing on women, but there's a lot of others out there that just any underdog out there that can benefit from these types of programs. And the more that we can make you successful, other people will see that and hopefully enhance that and get you some funding and just make it all work a little bit easier for us.
Well, thank you.
So, one thing that we talk about your past as far as urban planning and all of that, but welding training. Where did you get your welding training?
Yeah, so I mentioned I took that introductory 2-hour workshop. I had pretty good direction from the instructor, and kind of right away it just made sense. I think I had thought about welding a lot going into it, and it made a lot of sense. And then right afterward, I said, do you offer a class? Can I sign up? And he goes, no, you have to. There's an architecture class, but it wouldn't fit in my studies. I said, what if I create an independent study and you teach me how to weld and teach me how to teach welding? I said, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Sounds fun. So every Wednesday morning for several hours, I would work with him. His name's Mick. So Mick would teach me how to weld and teach me how he would teach welding. And then I would spend the rest of the day in the shop just tinkering with things and playing around. And then I've read a few books and I've watched a ton of videos, learning from others, even just coming for a tour like this and just learning about more gadgets that exist that I didn't know existed, just really helps kind of round out my skill set. And I'm constantly, we were talking about this earlier, I'm constantly learning. I'm a pretty good MIG welder, decent stick welder, decent TIG welder. I want to be an expert at all of those at some point, but it takes time.
Absolutely.
And I'll just continue to build those blocks to get there. And until I'm an expert in that, I'm going to ask, even then I would still ask for help because I like asking questions and I like working and collaborating with people. And I haven't really talked much about my husband, Corey, who is the managing partner at Women Who Weld. So I taught him to weld a few years ago. He was like, no, I'm not interested. It's your thing. Like, I don't want to do it. And I said, come on, you should do this. So taught him how to weld. And he said, oh my God, this is like, struck an arc and was like, this is so awesome. I see why you've just been like devoting your entire life to this. This is so much fun.
You gave him the bug.
Exactly. And so he's a really great co-instructor and we learn together. And, there's things that he knows that he has learned since I've taught him. I'm like, how did you know that? And he's like, well, I read it in this book. And then, we teach each other things. So it's just a constant learning experience.
What additional training and resource needs are the biggest challenges that we fellow tradeswomen and companies looking to give back can work to tackle next?
Yes, well, there's a lot of answers to that question. And I'm going to focus on what businesses can do to make a better experience for everybody. So whether it's a welding supply store or a fabrication shop, it's a male-dominated industry, and many places have never had a female, maybe in the front of house sometimes, but not in the back of house actually welding. And general harassment, sexual harassment occurs, and it needs to be dealt with in a way that does not allow it to happen again. Luckily, a lot of the women that have come from our program have moved into very supportive environments where if something does arise, it is handled. But there's been a few situations where it has not been handled, it has not been handled properly. That individual has to leave their job. Luckily, in the few instances this has happened, they've actually went and found a way better job at a way better company. Just because there is that sort of demand in the industry, you can leave someplace and find a better job. But it needs to be taken care of. It is just unacceptable. And this isn't just men harassing women. It's women on women, men harassing other men. It's not acceptable. I don't care if it's part of the culture. It's not a healthy culture and it needs to just be shut down and we need to move forward. I think that's like of utmost importance for the industry right now.
Very well said. I mean, I've got 25 plus years in the industry. I cut my teeth in the automotive industry where being a woman, it was one of those things that you couldn't really even act like a woman. You just had to do the work and just not even acknowledge the fact that you were a woman. But it's definitely a different game now. It's a different, avenue. And it's one thing to start the conversation just like you did. And it really is not acceptable. We are at a changing of the guard to where these conversations that we're having and, hopefully you can engage, on any platform that you have that it really is not acceptable. I find myself, again, since I'm a product of the 25 years of it, I find myself having those inappropriate comments coming out and I'm going, Joni, pull that back. Let's definitely lead by example and let's put that bar up there. Last question for you, and then I'll let you get on to the rest of your day. But how can we partner to share these opportunities with women? How can we bridge the gap between women and the welding industry together?
Continuing the work that we're doing by showcasing women, either women that have gone through the Women Who Weld program or who are in the trade right now. And I think Carmela Lectord has been doing a really great job showcasing those women. And we have as well independently, but maybe there's a way, to cross that promotion, to really hear from. And I think what would be interesting, and I've got a whole list of women that I think would be great to be interviewed that have gone through our program, just the people that may not be on Instagram and may not be showcasing their work because they're busy, with kids and working a full-time job, and maybe showcasing them in a way that's like, hey, you may have never heard of this person because they're not on Instagram, but they are part of your community and they are females that are in the industry.
Absolutely. Maybe we can work together to maybe highlight one a week where we can just put our, put some names into a hat and just reach in there and boom,
That would be cool.
get away from all the smoke and mirrors and all the, these heavy influencers that are just having very singular message out there. It would be really, really nice to empower the underdogs to take over the universe for us. So awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today. I'm here to support you.
So great
any
to
way
meet
that I
you.
can. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.